Kari Jobe is one of the most impactful worship leaders of our time. Her songs The Blessing, Revelation Song, Forever are literally sung in churches around the world. Kari's mom was 2 months post-brain surgery when she learned she was pregnant, and doctors advised her to end the pregnancy. Sandy shares the incredible story during our conversation. After hearing it, I am even more in awe of how God has used Kari to draw people closer to Him. Well, thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Well, I'm so excited to get to talk to you about, I'm sure both of our favorite subjects are kids, right?
Yeah.
It'll just be so special to get to hear about what it's been like for you as a mom and your perspective in getting to see what God has done in such a huge, impactful way with Kari's life and her talent that He's given her. You and your husband have literally traveled the world in ministry, haven't you?
We have. He worked with our global traveling for 10 or 15 years. We've always been on church staff, and we've gotten to go to 30. I think I've been to 38 or 39 countries. So,
Oh my goodness, how
yeah,
awesome.
it's been exciting.
Tell me how you and Mark met.
We actually met at student conference, or which in our day we called it youth camp. In the late 70s. So we were both in high school. He lived in Waco. I lived in Dallas. Both of our churches went to the same camp. And he was in a singing group. I was in a singing group. I saw him. I was like, who is that boy? So I met him and we started dating. And we dated for almost 2 years before we married right out of high school.
Oh, right out of high school. Okay.
Right out of high school. So at the very mature age of 19. So way young.
Was Mark already pursuing ministry at the time, or was that his goal once he graduated high school?
He had gotten saved when he was a junior in high school, and just was so on fire for the Lord. He had not pursued ministry, and so when he called me and told me that he had surrendered to preach, I told him I wasn't his girl.
Oh.
Yeah, my family was always the host home for traveling evangelists that came through. I grew up Southern Baptist. And so I always thought it was terrible that those people, those preachers left their families all the time. Their families were a mess. They were poor. They were in jail. They were on drugs. It was not something that I did not want that for my family. And so when he surrendered to preach, and I said, I'm not your girl. I don't want to marry a preacher. We had to work through some things. And love won. And I married a preacher. I said I'd never marry a preacher, especially one that traveled, and I never wanted to be a pastor's wife. So far I'm 3 for 3.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Now you guys are involved in pastoral care, right?
Yes, we serve the widows and the primetime age at the church we attend. And so it's great.
Kari is the oldest, but you actually have 3 children, right?
Kari is the oldest of 3. She has a sister that's all the kids are 4.5 years apart. And then she has a brother who's the baby.
Okay. But there are grandbabies, right? 5 of them, is that right?
There are 5. There were 6. We lost one, but we have 5 grandbabies here on earth, and they're all boys.
All boys. Oh my
All
goodness.
boys.
That sounds like a dream to me as a mom
It's
of 2
really
boys. Actually, love having a house full of boys.
They range in age from 2.5 to 11. So they're all so fun, so different, but so fun in their own personalities. So,
And then how did you come to be known as Honey? I love that grandma name.
I had a friend who that was her mother-in-law's grandmother name was Honey. Kari was 4 when we met them, and she was Honey then. And I latched onto that and said, I am saving that. So I love it. I absolutely love it. This is a quick little funny story about that. A couple of months ago, the kids were here and they were doing something at church, and we were in the green room backstage, and somebody offered one of Kari's boys some cookies, and they should have, it was kind of backwards, but he said yes. And she said, well, you need to ask your grandma and if you can have them. And he said, my grandma, that is my honey. So I'm like,
That is
oh,
so
I love
cute.
it. Yes, I love it.
And tell me a little bit about Carrie's personality as a child growing up. What was she like?
I would say she was the typical firstborn. If you read any birth order books, she was the dream child. And I know my other kids hate it when I say that. It makes them mad. But she truly, she was very well behaved. We traveled full time when she was little. We homeschooled her on the road because we traveled in evangelism. And she never gave us any problems whatsoever. We were probably harder on her than we were the others because that's what you think you have to be, as first time parents. But she was the type of child that we could just look at her and she would correct herself. So
Didn't
she
want to disappoint anyone.
no, but that kind of caused problems as she grew too, because she was always so good that she thought, it kind of turned into a little bit of perfectionism with her. So I remember in high school, my sister actually bought her a gift the first time Carrie left her room a mess before she went to school, because she was like, you just make them be too perfect. I'm like, I don't. That's what she wants, and she was like, that's not healthy. It's not good. It's crazy. But anyway, she just always was very considerate of others, very caring about how she left her room, she's very structured. She loved structure. She had turned her closet into a little prayer room. It was so amazing to me, very convicting to me, that she had her dad install a electrical outlet in her closet so she could have a little desk and lamp in there where she would have her prayer time and quiet time in her closet. So she was a great kid.
When the others came along, was she a natural born leader as well?
She was. She, in fact, there are 9 years difference between she and her younger brother, Caleb. And he said yes, ma'am, to her the first 2 years of his life because she was like another little mom, so we had to tell him, you don't have to say yes, ma'am, to your sister. We taught our kids, we're from the South, so we taught our kids to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Right.
Yeah, she has really always been a great leader. Just had great favor on her life. It's, people would get so upset, and people would want to meet with us and say, can you tell us the path you took? Can you give us some ideas? And can you tell us how to do this? Our child wants to go into full-time ministry or full-time music. And we literally will say, we don't have anything to do with that. We just tried to steward her the best we knew, and the Lord opened the doors. And I mean, that's how I still believe that, the Lord just opened the doors for her. It wasn't something that we did, but she just has always had, I believe, the grace and favor of the Lord on her life.
Do you feel like that you could see an anointing on her at an early age, that God was going to do something? You may not have known what it was at the time, but something big with this girl's life.
It's so interesting that you ask that, because when she was 4, we traveled full time, like I said. And when she was 4, we sang together as a family, and she had her own little songs that she would sing, little cassette tapes that were the accompaniment tracks is what they called them. And it was funny because every single night that we were on the road, people would say, is Carrie singing tonight? Is Carrie singing tonight? And so we got to where we were like, I think they'd rather have Carrie than us, or not in a jealous way, but I mean, we began to recognize that there was something on her life, that and it was, I believe it was truly just a gifting of the Holy Spirit. And of course, she was a cute little girl. So, a 4-year-old gets up to sing, and we taught her, you don't act shy, you don't act silly, you hold that microphone, you make eye contact. I mean, she tells the same stories that we trained her how to stand on stage and how to be on stage, because I don't know, I guess we were preparing her, not knowing we were preparing her.
Oh, I
But
love that. Yeah, you didn't even know what, how those gifts and talents and preparation were going to be used down the road. So you and your husband both sang, like you led worship in churches as you traveled and did evangelism?
we did. We didn't lead worship. He preached and we sang just songs together before he would, get up to preach or whatever. And
In the
so
Baptist church, we call that a special, right? You guys would do a special
yeah,
before he would bring the word.
right. But we would do 2 or 3 songs every night. We did revivals, is what they were called back then.
Hmm.
So we would do 2 or 3 songs each night. And so all of those would include Kari doing one by herself. And then as she got older, she sang with us and we sang together. She had the ability to, stay on key, find her pitch. She would pick out different songs that she wanted to learn as she got older to, incorporate into her singing specials. And so she would kind of sing like those artists. And so one day I said, Kari, you need to find your voice. God gave you a voice. You need to find your own voice. Don't sing like that artist or sound like that artist. You need to sing with the voice God gave you. And so she tells that story as well because one of the voice teachers that she had in I can't remember if it was high school or early college wanted to change her voice and wanted her to add a lot more vibrato and go into more of a classical musician. And I discouraged that. I'm like, I'm not a professional singer and I'm not a voice teacher, but no, that's not the voice God has given you. You need to let it be natural. And
When did the songwriting begin for her?
more so in college. She was on the church uh, students worship team when she was in
Hmm.
high school. And they did some songwriting, but I don't think the songwriting really started until she went off to college and had that opportunity to start, being a part of writing. She actually went to 2 different colleges. I don't know if I can say them both, but 2 different colleges. And she went a year and a half to one and then came back to Texas and went to another school. And when she finished um, she got her associates in theology and a minor in music, she was like, Mom, if I could just go one more year, I can have a third degree. And so she went back and finished, and she also has a psychology degree. So
Do you remember? Of course, I've seen Carrie in concert several times, and it's just so amazing because she has this ability to truly lead people into this beautiful place of worship where you don't even feel like you're at a performance or a concert. She's just truly leading you into this place that I think she just has such a gift for. Do you remember when you first started maybe seeing her perform on stage, whether it was at church? I think she led worship at your church, but or when you realized this ability that she has to bring people to a special place that is very unique?
it was just always, she just always had such a heart for worship and desire for worship. And I remember I did work for an airline at the time, and on her spring breaks or time during summer or holidays, she would get online and find different worship conferences, and we would take her to these conferences. That's what she wanted to do for free time, was go to these conferences. So it's funny to me now that she sings at so many conferences because that's what she loved and was drawn to, but she did, it was always more of a worship setting, not a performance. She would do some specials here and there, but her her bent was always toward leading a group in worship. Even before she had the opportunity while she was in school, um, she would have her friends over to her home, and she would have nights that she called throne room worship. And so they would just, whoever, she had a couple of friends that could play the guitar, and she had all, it was so cute, not cute, but I mean, it was really cool. She had this little bin that she would get out, and it was full of candles and these like placemats and cool little fabric runners and stuff that they would set up a little display, if you will, and they would light those candles and they would just begin to worship. And so once it reached about 75 or 100 in our home, we had to move that somewhere else. So
So it really mattered to her to create an atmosphere of worship.
yes, that is very, very important to her. And looking back on those days, even then she wanted to make sure that the atmosphere and the setting was um, cohesive to just resting or relaxing in the presence of the Lord. It just was something that she's always done, so we grew with her in that. So it never felt like one day she was here and the next day she was this big artist
Mm-hmm.
with a little bit of name recognition. It never felt that way to us. She's always just been who she is and stayed true to that. And I love that about her. I know sometimes people will ask her if she would ever be interested in speaking at a conference or doing this, and she's willing. But I always, as a mom, I rarely say anything, but sometimes I will say, stay in your lane and in the giftings that God's given you. Let somebody else teach if that's not what you're feeling. You set the atmosphere for the teacher. So
Mm.
um it's just always been something that was in her, that the Lord truly opened the doors for her.
Mhm. I know I can relate to what you said a minute ago when you mentioned the prayer closet and her wanting that. You said it was very convicting to you. Has Carrie's walk and surrender and desire to use her gifts, has that inspired you just as her mom? I think it's kind of interesting to see, I'll hear the prayers of my kids and just be so inspired by the depths of their heart and where they are in their walk that it inspires me. It's one of the, I think, the best parts of being their mom.
Right. Absolutely. I love when we go to anything where she's leading worship, she and Cody both.
Summertime for our family means a lot of travel, and yes, most of the time Tucker does get to tag along. We spend a lot of time in our RV, and that means lots of walks and activities with Tuck. Before we head out, we bathe Tucker with Coat Defense's Sensitive Skin Shampoo. It smells so fresh without being loaded down with chemicals, and his coat stays really soft. We always make sure to pack the Coat Defense Daily Preventative Powder as well. This powder that we just sprinkle on his coat and paws acts like a dry shampoo and works to eliminate odor and repel dirt. Tucker's friends at Coat Defense are offering you 15% off to try any of their awesome products. You can visit coatdefense.com and use the code MAMA15 at checkout. As you guys know, I am a huge fan of BAREFACED and have been using their skincare consistently for about a year now. My go-to this summer is the Summer Staples Toning Pads Liquid Gold, which is their vitamin C and SPF. I recently learned that vitamin C can make your sunscreen more effective, and that's why this summer I am making sure I include it in my everyday routine. Some vitamin Cs can be a little drying, but BAREFACED is a microemulsion with coconut esters, so it is extremely hydrating. And of course, I never go without my SPF. If you're not wearing a daily SPF, investing in skincare is kind of a waste. My personal favorite is the tinted SPF. It is a universal tint derived from iron oxides and not only provides a natural looking glow, but also serves as an extra defense against those dark spots. These products are your summer skincare staples, ensuring your skin stays healthy, nourished, and protected. You can get 15% off your first purchase of summer staples using the code MAMA15 at barefaced.com.
When we go to a worship setting, it's I'm just always reminded of the importance of having a relationship with the Lord, because what she's doing on the platform is overflow of what's happened in private. For she and Cody both. And when I read or listen to the lyrics of her songs, I love going back to some of her old stuff. I have a playlist on my phone called Peace, and it's all the songs that I've pulled from different artists, but there are a lot of hers on there that are just comforting or worshipful. And So I loved listening to those, but when I listened to the lyrics, I realized that they were birthed out of her relationship with the Holy Spirit and,
Mm.
her walk with the Lord. And it's so encouraging, but it is always, I'm always like, that's where it's at. And when I get stressed out or overwhelmed, I need to remember I need to go to my prayer closet.
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
don't have maybe I need to put a cute lamp in my closet.
Yes, put a cute lamp in your prayer closet and turn on your peace playlist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
You did a happy birthday post for Carrie, and I'm not sure if it was this year or before that I had seen, and you mentioned something that I hope you're okay with talking about, but you talked about what you were dealing with actually at the time of being pregnant with her. Can you take me back to that?
We had been married just for I think it was 4 or 5 months when I found out I had a tumor on my skull. And so I had major surgery, as a new bride, 4 months in to marriage. And so there were a lot of risks that they had told me about with that surgery. And so, had the surgery, came through it just great. They did determine that the type of tumor that it was a 3.5 inch tumor on my skull that they took out, put stainless steel mesh in there to replace the bone. And, but the type of tumor that it was is one that grows on bones. And so they did x-rays, extensive x-rays on every single bone in my body. And so 2 months later, I was just horribly sick. Couldn't keep anything down, just feeling terrible all the time. So I went to the doctor and I said, I think that one of the medications that you gave me for headaches is not agreeing with me. And so told him what side effects I was experiencing. He said, I feel like I need to do another test. So he did a urine test. And he said, well, I have good news and bad news. I said, okay. Of course, I've only been out of brain surgery for 2 months. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't handle any more bad news. And he said, the good news is it's not the medication, although I don't want you to take it anymore. The bad news is you're pregnant, and that medication is you can't take when you're pregnant. And I was absolutely shocked. I was preventing pregnancy at that point. We don't, hadn't been married very long. And I said, why did you say that's bad news? Even though I was in shock. And he said, the amount of radiation that your body has, that you've had, I've determined that you were pregnant during surgery, and there's no way that you will have a normal baby. This is going to be a difficult pregnancy. It would just be better if you terminate this pregnancy. I was shocked as a 19-year-old girl, to look at him and say, do you mean you want me to have an abortion? And he said, well, in the medical field, we just say termination. It would be better for your body. You've been through a lot. So anyway, he said, why don't you talk to your husband? Call me tomorrow and we can, make arrangements for that to happen if that's what you want to do. And so I left there just in shock, went straight to where my husband was employed. He left for the afternoon. We went home, and at 19 years old, knelt by our bed and said, God, if this is what you have for us, we're going to walk this road. We believe that you are the giver and taker of life, and that's not going to be our choice. I have no idea where that all came from, because it's not something you're prepared for or trained for, as young parents or young married couple. And I ended up, it was after 6 o'clock, and I ended up calling the doctor's office of one of my friends that had had a baby. And I was just going to leave my name on their recorder to call me. I wanted to make an appointment. I have no idea why I called them, except now I do know. But I called, and the man that answered said his name. And I said, is this the answering service? And he said, no, this is the doctor. And so I said, oh my goodness. Okay. I thought I was just going to leave a message. And so I said, my name is Sandy. I found out today that I'm pregnant and I had brain surgery 2 months ago, and the doctor wants me to terminate the pregnancy. And he said, well, first of all, congratulations. So I got choked up because that was the first time somebody had acknowledged that it was a happy thing, to be expecting a baby. And though my parents were going to be happy, it was just a lot for everybody to process in the moment. And so when I explained everything to him, sorry, I get choked up. When I explained everything to him, he said, I tell you what, don't do anything. Come to my office tomorrow and let's talk about it. And if this is something you want to carry on and go through with, I'll walk you through this. But I would encourage you not to do anything, not to make any other decisions till we have time to talk about it. So he walked us through that whole pregnancy. It was a very difficult pregnancy. I was sick the entire time, hospitalized 3 times for dehydration, and I had severe migraines the whole time. And so when we finally had her, I ended up having an emergency C-section. And I remember I didn't even get to hold her the first 2 days because I nearly died having her before they did the C-section. And so I didn't have the strength to hold her. And so when they finally brought her into us, the nurse went out, shut the door, and my husband laid her on the bed. And I said, just uncover her. I just want to see her. 10 toes, 10 fingers. I mean, she was absolutely perfect. She weighed almost 9 pounds. And she was just such a little miracle baby. But we didn't know, that even though the enemy wanted to take my life, he wanted to take her life before she was even born. And so he knew the destiny, I believe, that the Lord had for her, So I didn't tell that story for a really long time. And I think you can edit this out if you want to. But after I had her, we were at a church singing one time. And I was sharing a little bit of the story, and I got real choked up and was crying during the story. And it was before a song that we sang as a special. And after the service, a lady came up to me and she said, I just want to encourage you with something. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, you should never tell that story again. It makes people feel sorry for you, and it makes people feel manipulated. Well, I mean, that was the last thing I wanted to do as a leader, and so I didn't tell the story for a long time. I know. And which makes me sad because it is part of my story, but it's part of Kari's story of God called her, and the enemy wanted to take her out in the womb, and he didn't. And he had a call on her life and had a destiny for her. And so several years ago, she had shared a little bit of that story with someone. And so she had been asked to sing at a center for it's crisis pregnancy, where they help the mom, go ahead and have the children and whatever. It was pro-life. And they were having her sing. And so they asked me if I would be willing to share a little bit of my story before she sang. And I was like, oh, the story that I'm not supposed to share. That lady had just really shut me down I trusted her as a leader in the church, but that part has made me aware of the influence that we have and how important it is as leaders to influence those around us and the next generation, not with just our opinion or our preference, but only what God says to do or God's ways. And so, yeah, it's a big part of our story that I didn't even keep pictures from when I was pregnant with her because I was so ashamed. My head was shaved. I hated my appearance, so I wish now, because God's done so much healing in my life, that I wish I had some photos to look back and say, This is a story of redemption. But the Lord's given us amazing opportunity to share some of that and encourage women that are in crisis pregnancies to that the Lord is the giver and taker of life. And whether it's an unwed mom, an unplanned pregnancy, or something medically, that there's other options, with following, getting a different opinion, going through some counsel and maybe having a different option. Um, so I love that he's used our story, even though it was squelched for so long.
I'm so glad that you do share it. I think that that's amazing to think about a decision that could have been made. And now you see all of the people who've been impacted by that little life that you chose to, by the grace of God, give life to.
Right.
It's
And
so, so
I
special.
don't know what her motive was in that. I'll never know. She passed away, but um I've I've always wished that I could go back to the doctor that delivered her and thank him, because it was not that the doctor that wanted to terminate had, he was just doing his medical job. I don't have ill feelings toward him, but I'm very grateful for the doctor that delivered her and walked us through that process. I don't know if he was a believer. There was so much going on. I don't know, but I'm just grateful that God gave him the desire to birth babies and that he led us to him to deliver Carrie and to walk us through that difficult time.
Tell me, like what it's like now today to go to, one of Carrie's shows, or when you do get to be a part of. Does she still pop in sometimes and lead worship at yours and your husband's church?
She does. She doesn't get to just pop in as often. It has to be a little more scheduled and planned, but we love it when she does. But we absolutely love going to their events. I always tell her I end up on the floor most of the time just because I love the presence of the Lord too. And I'm so grateful for the presence of the Lord and for what he's done in our family, for what he's done in her family. And it's not an easy life that she lives. It looks glamorous. We've gone on several trips with them where we jump on the bus with them. And so thank the Lord for GPS, because in the mornings, when you're in a dark bunk, you can just open your phone and see where you are in the world.
No idea.
Yeah, because sometimes they'll be in a different city every day, and so we're so proud of them, and we do realize that it's a big sacrifice that
Mhm.
they've made to go on the road. It's long hours. It's somewhere different all the time, and
So
uh,
sometimes honey hops on the bus to help out with the boys, I guess.
oh, that's my favorite thing. Yeah, we love it. We love getting to do that. And sometimes we'll go keep the boys while they go on a trip. We love doing that. The boys don't always get to go. If there's a lot of different flights involved, it's
Hmm.
really hard to take two young boys. They can do it and they have done it, but sometimes it's fun for us to get to have the opportunity. I know they're at the time of this taping, they're leaving for an international trip, and the other grandmother gets to be there, and it's just fun. It's busy. There's a reason God gives little kids to young parents.
Yes, you realize that. Absolutely. Everybody says that's going to be the best part of getting to be a grandmother is how much fun it is while you're with them, but you also can take a break and say, okay, that was a good time. Here you go.
And it's so funny because all of our kids, and yours will too, they'll say, you were so much harder on us. You would never even think about letting us have that for breakfast or eat that, at this time of day. And we just always laugh and say, yeah, we learn a lot. You learn to pick your battles, and you learn that some things don't matter.
What have been some of the highlights for you when I think about like accolades and things that Kari and Cody have gotten to do, whether it was, of course, her Grammy nominations, Dove Awards, being invited to the White House. I mean, they just incredible things that I would guess you couldn't have even dreamed up for your kids to have the opportunity to do.
It is such an honor, that the Lord has used them in the whole world. We saw the blessing go all over the world during 2020, and I love that they still stay humble and stay grounded. They're still, I can hardly tell her a story that somebody has sent or shared about the impact of their music that she doesn't cry and say, I want to go now. We've shared about being on the mission field and played some of her music for different things. And she's like, I want to go next time. So I love that their hearts are still for the Lord, and they choose to stay grateful and humble for the doors that He opens. And that blesses me more than anything. I don't really get caught up in I'm very proud of them, but I don't get caught up in the fame part of it. People ask me all the time, what is it like to have, such a famous daughter? And I'm like, I don't know. She's just Kari to me. I don't know her as a famous girl. That's not a big deal to me. And I don't know who deems her famous, or, is it because 5 people came or 10 people came? What is it? But, it's, I love that they still have such a hunger for the presence of the Lord, and to continue to bring people into the presence of the Lord, because that's where life happens. And that's where we gain our access to the Father. And it's where we find structure, stability for our own souls. So I'm super proud of them.
I ran into Kari not too long ago at TJ Maxx in her, ponytail and sweatpants. I'm like, okay, this is my kind of girl right here.
Yeah. I love that.
What would you say that Kari got from her mama, which is the name of our podcast?
Oh, goodness. It always feels arrogant to say something like that, answer questions like this, but I love hospitality. I love setting the table and making a place for whoever is going to be at the table, whether it's 2 of us or 4 of us. Now, I don't set the table every night when it's just my husband and I. Sometimes it's get your own. But she has a real heart for hospitality. She has a real heart for preparing, which is part of what she does anyway, preparing people to go into the presence of the Lord. But she prepares a beautiful table. She loves to set a beautiful table. She loves to organize. She has far exceeded me. I love organization. We probably have had every label maker that's ever been made. I love that she loves to give small gifts, just a thank you gift or a thoughtful gift when she goes to someone's home, thanking them for having her over, or just that's all hospitality type stuff. But
yeah, you can tell she's raised in a good Southern home to pick up all of those Southern traits for sure. Well, it's so nice to talk to you, and you're so beautiful. And Kari also got her looks from her mama.
Oh gosh, thank you. That's very kind.
And her smile. And I just really appreciate you sharing your story. And I love how these stories of me talking to other moms really encourages others who listen. And I know that there will be a lot of people who will be blessed by our conversation. So thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It was great to meet you, and thanks for having me on today.
Well, thank you once again for joining us for these special conversations. I would love to hear from you. Visit gotitfrommymomapodcast.com, and you can get quick links to all the episodes to either listen to or watch. Plus, you can send me a note and let me know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoyed this episode, go back and check out interviews with moms of other Christian artists, including Matthew West for King and Country, Jason Crabb, Brandon Lake, and many more. We'll meet you back here next week.